ហ៊ុនបានប្រាប់ខ្ញុំថាការទៅធ្វើការមានរយៈពេល3ឆ្នាំទើបខ្ញុំអាចត្រឡប់មកស្រុកខ្មែរវិញបានតាំងពីទៅក្រុមហ៊ុនបានសន្យាថានាំពលករទៅធ្វើការនៅប្រទេសជប៉ុនហើយខ្ញុំក៏មិនបាននេះទេប៉ុន្តែក្រុមហ៊ុនថាសួរថាតើធ្វើការនៅប្រទេសជប៉ុនផ្នែកអីធ្វើការយ៉ាងម៉េចថាក្រុមហ៊ុនបានប្រាប់ខ្ញុំថាធ្វើការលើជប៉ុនគឺការនេសាទ
ករណី Giant Ocean នេះតាមតែយើងដឹងពីជនរងគ្រោះគឺគេចាប់ដើមធ្វើការជ្រើសរើសពលករខ្មែរយើងហ្នឹងតាំងពីឆ្នាំ2010និងឆ្នាំរហូតដល់ចុងឆ្នាំ2011ពួកគេបានជ្រើសរើសតាមរយៈការផ្សព្វផ្សាយតាមវិទ្យុក៏ដូចជាកាសែតទៅធ្វើការនៅប្រទេសជប៉ុនបាទហើយនឹងឬក៏ទៅធ្វើការនៅប្រទេសណាផ្សេងទៀតគេអត់ជាក់ទេបាទអញ្ចឹងធ្វើឲ្យពលករខ្មែរយើងទាំងអស់នោះគាត់មានការចាប់អារម្មណ៍អញ្ចឹងគាត់ក៏បានមកចុះឈ្មោះនៅក្រុមហ៊ុនហើយក្រោយមកទៅរយៈពេលតែ3ឬក៏4ថ្ងៃទេគឺក្រុមហ៊ុនរៀបចំឯកសារឲ្យគាត់អញ្ចឹងនៅពេលដែលគេបញ្ជូនគាត់ចេញគាត់អត់បានទៅប្រទេសជប៉ុនអត់បានដោយអ្វីដែលក្រុមហ៊ុនបាននិយាយទេគឺអ្នកខ្លះត្រូវបានគេបញ្ជូនទៅប្រទេសអាហ្វ្រិកខាងត្បូងអ្នកខ្លះទៀតទៅកោះ Mauritius ហើយអ្នកខ្លះទៀតក៏កាន់ទៅប្រទេសយូរ៉ាខ្វាយហើយមានអ្នកខ្លះទៀតក៏ទៅរហូតដល់ប្រទេសចិនផងដែរបាទហើយមានអ្នកខ្លះក៏ទៅប្រទេសតៃវ៉ាន់ករណី Giant Ocean ហ្នឹងយើងទទួលដំបូងនៅចុងឆ្នាំ2011គឺកំឡុងពេលខែ11ខែ12ក្រោយពីយើងបានទទួលករណីនេះយើងបានរាយការណ៍ករណីនេះទៅកាន់នាយកដ្ឋានយុទ្ធប្រឆាំងការជួញដូរនោះហើយស្របពេលនោះគឺនាយកដ្ឋានយុទ្ធប្រឆាំងការជួញដូរនោះក៏បានទទួលករណីនឹងជាច្រើនដែរយើងបានជំរុញនាយកដ្ឋានឲ្យការបញ្ជូនករណីនេះទៅតុលាការហើយតុលាការទីក្រុងភ្នំពេញបានដំណើរការស៊ើបអង្កេតហើយក្រោយមកក៏មានការចេញដីកាកោះហៅឈ្មោះ Lin Legend គឺជាក្រុមហ៊ុនតំណាងក្រុមហ៊ុន Giant Ocean នៅប្រទេសកម្ពុជាដើម្បីឲ្យបំភ្លឺករណី Giant Ocean International Fishery នេះមិនត្រឹមតែពាក់ព័ន្ធនឹងឈ្មោះ Lin Legend ម្នាក់ឯងទេប៉ុន្តែមានមនុស្ស5នាក់ផ្សេងទៀតដែលពាក់ព័ន្ធដែលជាអ្នកដែលមានភាគហ៊ុនឬក៏ភាគហ៊ុននៅក្នុងក្រុមហ៊ុន Giant Ocean នេះប៉ុន្តែអ្នកដទៃ5នាក់ទៀតយើងអត់ដែលបានឃាត់ខ្លួនជាជនជាតិតៃវ៉ាន់ហើយយើងអត់បានប៉ូលីសអត់បានឃាត់ខ្លួនពួកគាត់នៅឡើយទេ
សូមជំរាបថាតាំងពីឆ្នាំ2010ដល់ឆ្នាំ2014នេះគឺយើងបានបញ្ជូនសំណុំរឿងទៅតុលាការចំនួន4ដងហើយបាទក្នុងករណីក្រុមហ៊ុន Giant នឹងមួយគឺ4ដងហើយចុងក្រោយនៅក្នុងខែ4ឆ្នាំ2013យើងបានទទួលបានដីកាឲ្យចាប់ខ្លួនពីតុលាការសមត្ថកិច្ចយើងមានការលំបាកក្នុងការកំណត់ថាគាត់បានបញ្ជូនទៅចំនួនប្រមាណអ្នកដោយសារជនសង្ស័យនេះគាត់បំផ្លាញឯកសារអស់ហើយអញ្ចឹងតាមការទទួលមិនដឹងមាន170អ្នកហើយ170អ្នកហើយក្នុងនោះគឺមាន158បណ្ដឹង
គឺយើងបានទទួលពាក្យបណ្ដឹងមួយចំនួនចាពាក់ព័ន្ធទៅនឹងអ្នកនេសាទដែលត្រូវបានទៅបញ្ជូនទៅតាមក្រុមហ៊ុន Giant Ocean ដែលពេលនោះគឺយើងបានធ្វើការទំនាក់ទំនងសហការជាមួយនឹងនាយកដ្ឋានប្រឆាំងការជួញដូរមនុស្សនិងការពារអនិច្ចជនគឺដោះស្រាយបញ្ហានេះដោយធ្វើសំណុំបែបបទបញ្ជូនទៅតុលាការ
យើងឃើញថាក្រុមហ៊ុនស្រុកខ្មែរជាអ្នកជ្រើសរើសមែនប៉ុន្តែអ្នកដែលកេងប្រវ័ញ្ចពិតប្រាកដអ្នកដែលធ្វើអាជីវកម្មរបស់ពួកគាត់ពិតប្រាកដគឺពាក់ព័ន្ធនឹងក្រុមហ៊ុនផ្សេងទៀតឬក៏ពាក់ព័ន្ធម្ចាស់កប៉ាល់ផ្សេងទៀត
Step Up Marine started as a recruitment agency. The two directors that founded that were the directors were Victor Lim and his wife Catherine Ong. They started out as recruiting foreign domestic workers. Then this was in the 1980s. In 1992, they changed their business into one for recruiting ship crew and as a manning agency. So administration services. Then in 2012, because we lodged a complaint against him with the Ministry of Manpower, they investigated him, but they didn't get sufficient proof. They've told us they didn't get sufficient proof to implicate him, to charge him for offences under our legislation. He then removed himself as the director. So far recognized as traffic is the Cambodian ones, Philippines. I've had a few cases of Indonesia that I know come through Step Up. The cases that I've worked with are these three nationalities. But I know he also recruits from China, Vietnam, and Sri Lanka and India as well. But I understand that on the vessels, I don't know if they're recruited by Step Up or Beverly. They've seen Russian workers, Croatian and Ukrainian workers. Beverly Agency did recruit a Nigerian. Giant Ocean was obviously him going. I mean, he travels. He goes to Auckland, he goes to Indonesia, he goes to Philippines, he meets up with these agencies and he says, I've got these ship owners, right, looking for fishermen, and then would you help me recruit? In Singapore, he does it through domestic workers, so Filipino domestic workers, Indonesian domestic workers, where he recruits his men. So they arrive into Singapore. He picks them up, his staff picks them up directly from the airport, brings them to the office. Then they sign documents. One is a handwritten contract and in English, and the men will be looking at this document the minute they arrive, and they were told to sign on a line. The only signature is that of the fisherman, the Filipino fisherman. There was no company seal, no signature of the employer. Then they were given promissory notes to sign, to say that you owe $1,500, which they signed also in English. Then they're given an invoice, which is a list of dry goods and provisions that they require before they even board the vessel. I think $150 to $250 that they signed, which means you've bought these dry goods and provisions, and this is how much money you owe us. Okay, so they are further indebted when they arrive. Then they are put in a room upstairs, which is like upstairs the office. And then when the vessel is ready to receive them, they board the vessel in Singapore. They are put on a flight to board the vessel in Taiwan, where the vessel is, or to board the vessel in China, or to board the vessel in Caledonia.
Taiwan បានយក passport ទៅធ្វើលិខិតសញ្ញានៅប្រទេសចិនដើម្បីសញ្ញា passport និងធ្វើ sport យន្តហោះខ្ញុំមកធ្វើដំណើរមកស្រុកខ្មែរវិញហើយការធ្វើដំណើរនឹងសមុទ្រយន្តហោះខ្ញុំបានសួរប៉ុន្តែគេបាននិយាយថាគេបានកាត់ប្រាក់ខែរបស់ខ្ញុំមានអារម្មណ៍សប្បាយដែលមិននឹកស្មានថាខ្លួនឯងអាចត្រឡប់មកដល់ស្រុកខ្មែរវិញ ដល់ពេលដឹងថាកូនខ្ញុំឡើងមកដល់ភ្នំពេញភ្លាមខ្ញុំចង្វាឡើងមកភ្នំពេញមកទទួលកូននឹកឃើញថាកូនមកដល់ម៉ោង 11 យប់ នៅខាងនេះ 3 នៅនេះមកបងនេះចាំមីលីនទៅណាបាញ់មីលីនរត់ទៅណាបាញ់ចា
50 fishermen from the rural villages. They have no training in the fishing industry. They've never worked on a fishing vessel. So all these men come in here, and they're put on the vessels, whether they are put on the vessels that are berthed in Singapore or berthed overseas, Taiwan, New Caledonia. Immediately they start work, the ship goes off into international waters. It's on the job training. They learn as they are on the vessel. So there are a lot of injuries. The conditions are really bad. They can work between 17 to 22 hours a day with no rest. If there's a full catch, they don't sleep. They continually work. There are two reasons if the vessel's berthed into any port. One is when they have a full catch, or the fishing vessel is in such is damaged, is in such appalling condition, damaged to such an appalling state that they have to come in for repairs. Recently, I've seen a case of I met an 18-year-old boy. He has been on a vessel for 19 months. So when he bought the vessel, he would have been 16. I've heard of fishermen being sexually assaulted. The men do talk about when they are open, not sexual assault because that's a bit hard for them, but physical assault, being beaten up and being threatened with a gun.
មានអាដែលតាក់ទងធ្វើការលើកប៉ាល់រយៈពេល30ខែខ្ញុំបានដឹងសុខទុក្ខបាទមកខ្លួនឯងសុខខ្មែរបងប្អូន
ទៅប្រទេសគេបាត់សូនឆឹងមកនឹកឃើញជីវិតមកអត់ធំដល់គេមិនដឹងព្រាត់រស់ព្រាត់ស្ដាប់មកនឹកឃើញបងស្រន់ណាបើទឹកដោះមិនដែរថ្លៃឲ្យកូនរស់រៀនមានជីវិតត្រឡប់មកវិញយើងឈឺអត់ជាយើងឈឺរយៈពេល2ឆ្នាំចាឥឡូវខ្លួនឯងអាចសម្រើកបានទេអាចយើងឈឺហ្នឹងគឺមិនអាចដើរបានតែនៅការឈឺនៅឈឺហើយចាំបើយើងធ្វើការងារធ្ងន់អីញ៉ាំវាកើតទេជើងដើររួចអត់ការធម្មតាពេលខ្ញុំធ្វើការឈឺចឹងគឺជាការធម្មតាពេលខ្ញុំឈឺរហូតធ្វើការចឹងវាមានបញ្ហាព្រោះឯងខ្ញុំបានប្រាប់កាប់តែលើប៉ាល់មិនអាចជួយយើងបានឈឺមិនត្រូវធ្វើការជនជាតិស្អីស្លាប់នៅលើទូកនោះជនជាតិអីកូនជនជាតិឥណ្ឌាស្លាប់ម្នាក់ឯងឈឺអីគេហ្នឹងថាឈឺប៉ុន្តែការឈឺថាគេអត់មានព្យាបាលមានអីមានផលិតភាពព្យាបាលព្រោះឯងធ្វើការនៅលើប៉ាល់មិនដូចនៅលើគោទេអាចមានពេទ្យមានអីក្នុងផ្លូវអញ្ចឹងគេឲ្យធ្វើទាំងឈឺគឺធ្វើការទាំងឈឺរហូតដល់ស្លាប់ហើយដល់ពេលស្លាប់អញ្ចឹងគេអត់មាននិយាយថាមិនទេអ្នកនៅជាមួយគ្នាហ្នឹងហើយខ្មោចគេយកទុកនៅឯណាអាខ្មោចអ្នកស្លាប់ហ្នឹងខ្មោចគេយកដាក់ខ្លះផ្សេងមួយថៃ
Usually it's to a religious organization that they escape to, church, mosque, and they seek for help. Now they have a drop-in center. You know, this is an area within where they've the security gates, so they don't need a passport to come out to this center. The men come in here, they don't sit down with the men and talk to them or provide them with counseling because the men are afraid. I mean, I've been there, the men are afraid. The captain actually has binoculars. They don't have a work permit, so they are not, our labor legislation, they can't come under they can't come under the jurisdiction of our labor legislation, which means there's difficulty in getting their salary back. How do you help them? And if you help them, they come out, they want their money. They can't get their money because they've broken their contract. You can send them home, and you send them home and you give them $200, $300. They're still indebted. So that's one of the reasons why they are reluctant to come forward. The real owners of the ships are not the names registering the ship. Okay, so the ships are usually registered with the Taiwanese flag. And it's usually a China owner, but what the real owner who bought the ship actually pays for a phantom owner to register the vessel, and the phantom owner is usually 80s, very sick. The way the vessels go into waters like in Africa is because of piracy. So in this case, the waters are pirated, and because they're pirated, there's a huge load. So a lot of the vessels tend to, unflag, cover their names, and go into these waters and risk piracy and fish.
International law is still deficient when it comes to the fishermen. They're now the biggest group of workers in the world who are not represented by a convention that gives them protection. And so this is something that needs urgent attention. In international law about who has jurisdiction over a ship or a boat, it's under the flag of another nation. So therefore it's got some protection against the authorities in the port that it goes to. So they can't just go on board and enforce local law.
Singapore did not sign the Fishermen's Convention, under ILO. They signed the Seafarers Convention. Fishermen are not provided with the same level of support and assistance as seafarers. The Seafarers Convention, has protections. There are a lot of countries who sign conventions, provide protection for the seafarers where they get assistance and support wherever ports that they berth. The vessel comes in here and it's a Singapore flag vessel, then our laws apply. But because it's not a Singapore flag vessel, our laws don't apply. So which is why in New Zealand a few years back, because of the abuses and the custom officers found out that had fishermen complaining to them about sexual assault, physical assault, that's when they made it law that every vessel that comes into New Zealand waters have to be registered in New Zealand so that their legislation applies.
Now, the Singapore government's perspective on this is that any offences that have taken place outside Singapore's jurisdiction, whether it's deceptive practices in recruitment or mistreatment of workers on the high seas. But we think that this is not an adequate response to trafficking. Everyone who is involved in the process is party to trafficking, whether you are the recruiter, whether you take part in the placement of the worker, or whether you're, if you like to use a very commercial term, the end user. Yes, the law provides for action against people who traffic, including those who exploit trafficked people in their final destination here in Singapore. And so it's good that there is a consolidated law in Singapore at last on trafficking. The measures against trafficking before were scattered and they weren't comprehensive. There's still major gaps. So for example, it's not clear that if a worker at some point gives consent to part of the process of trafficking, it's not clear that the law would give them protection. And in our experience, most workers give consent at some point. They may go along with a process which involves deception at the point of entry into Singapore. When they hear about a job in Singapore, they may be quite enthusiastic about taking it because it sounds very promising. So at that point, they give some sort of consent. And then later on, if they're asked to sign a contract with disadvantageous terms, they may well feel that they're obliged to sign it, and so that seems to be willing consent when in fact it's not, it's under duress. So what we've got to see now is how the law will be interpreted and how effective it will be. I think a lot depends on the commitment shown in enforcing the law.
for the purposes of the new law means that anybody who is transporting and harbouring a victim of trafficking through Singapore will still fall under this law. It will still be, they'll still be able to be prosecuted under this law. But so that is a potential area in which the new law could be used specifically for trafficked fishermen. These agencies are now being far more careful when they recruit, in that many of the fishermen, or as few fishermen as possible, they transit through Singapore. So in other words, they're still recruiting with agents in home countries, but they're deploying them directly onto vessels in